Hey, Scott. It's great to be with you again tonight.
Thank you. So,
Well,
uh,
we don't always do this, so this is
yeah,
different, but we like it when we do. So
we're
I'm going to
we're
turn it over
figuring it
to
out.
you. Yes, I'm going to turn it over to you. You get to kick us off.
Okay. Hi, everybody. As Tammy mentioned, before we hit the record button, Dr. Fawcett is absent this week, so Tammy and I are filling in. We usually start these webinars with about 15 to 20 minutes of education. Type your questions into the Q&A feature anytime you want, including right now. We'll get to as many as we can. But before we do that, I wanted to talk a little bit about pornography, frankly, and why pornography is so addictive. Not necessarily the impact of pornography or how to get sober from pornography, but just why it's so gosh darn addictive. Um, I love teaching this class to guys at our treatment center and also to guys in the workbooks or in the online work groups with me because it's very interactive and I'm not used to doing this in a non-interactive way, so bear with me. But pornography, I usually open it up and say, hey guys, why is pornography so addictive? And invariably, the first answer I get is, well, pornography never says no. And that is a huge reason that it's so easy to get addicted to pornography. Pornography never says no. There is zero vulnerability involved with pornography. It is available 24/7, 365, 366 in leap year. It never goes away. It's always there for me. And I can get my needs met with pornography. And this is answer number two I get. Oh, I can get my needs met with pornography just like that. I don't have to wait. It's instant. It's right there. And to a certain extent, that's true. But do we really get our needs met? 9 times out of 10, when somebody looks at pornography, it's not because they're horny. It's because they're lonely or bored or feeling less than or. It's a feeling that we don't want to feel, and we're not comfortable going to a real person, like calling a friend or even telling a romantic partner, hey, I'm feeling lonely or bored or ashamed or less than, unworthy, unlovable, all these things that we feel that we do not like to feel. So we turn to, in our case, behavior. Some people turn to substances like alcohol or drugs or whatever to numb the pain of their unmet needs. We turn to pornography to numb the pain of our unmet need. And it works really well. This is porn addicts I'm talking about when I say we, and I am one. It works really well. It works just as well as alcohol. It works just as well as cocaine or heroin or any other drug until it screws up our life and we end up in recovery. It is a wonderful coping mechanism, particularly for kids who grow up in dysfunctional homes. I learned very early on that I could, when things were crazy and I wasn't getting my needs met, that I could go in my room, shut the door, and escape into pornography or marijuana or whatever was at hand that day. It worked, and it worked well until I was an adult and I had no idea how to connect with another person. I had no idea how to get my needs met. My need, I was feeling lonely. I needed to feel connected with someone. Well, pornography is not someone, it's something. And that thing is not even real. It's a fantasy. It's a pure fantasy. Real people do not have sex the way they have sex in pornography. And even real couples who put themselves on camera it's not really how normal people or non-addicts go about having a sexual relationship. It's a pure fantasy, number one, and it does not meet our needs. But we don't have to be vulnerable, and we can escape the pain of our unmet needs. And it works really well at that. So that's reason number 2 why it's so addictive. It's effective. It numbs us. It numbs us as well as alcohol or drugs or any other addictive behavior. But the real reasons that pornography is so addictive have nothing to do with the lack of vulnerability and its ability to numb us. There are 2 other things in this world that are highly, highly, highly addictive. One of them is variety. We like new and different. Human beings are wired to want new and different, not just sexually, but in everything. We like new and different. This is why fashions change every season. This is why, we redecorate the house. This is why we buy a new car. This is why we do all of this stuff. We want new and different. And pornography offers new and different like nothing else on the planet. Internet rule number 34 says, if it exists, there's porn of it. And that's pretty much true. Usually there's a little picture of Calvin and Hobbes from the old cartoon doing something that Calvin and Hobbes probably shouldn't be doing. And then the caption, if it exists, there's porn of it. Or if you can think of it, there's porn of it. Variety is highly addictive. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. The other thing that is hugely addictive about pornography is what we call intermittent reward. We love maybe. This is why little old ladies take their Social Security, and little old men take their Social Security check down to the casino and spend the whole thing by the end of the night. Because the next button they push on that slot machine, the next button, you just have to pull the thing. The next button might be the big hit. It's an intermittent reward. We never know when that hit is coming, but we know it's coming because it's a casino. They have to pay out, where I live, they have to, slot machines, they pay out 91 cents of every dollar they take in. Theoretically, if I play, $1 million on a slot machine, I'm going to go home with 910 grand, eventually, because that's the law here. So why would I play this machine where I'm going to lose 90 grand? I play this machine because I might get a payoff and I might hit the big one and walk away with scads of money. And I don't know which one it is. And these machines, they have an algorithm built into them that randomizes the reward. And the people who design these machines, they know exactly how often they have to pay off, how often they have to pay off small, and how often they have to pay off medium, and how often they have to pay off huge to keep you playing. And they program these things to be incredibly addictive. Video games are the same way. It's been a long time since I played video games, but driving along in Mario Go-Kart, there's coins and there's this and just enough to keep you playing. That silly Pokemon Go game was the king of the algorithm. People were literally walking off cliffs while they were playing Pokemon Go like 5 or 6 years ago, because Pokemon Go gave everyone exactly the right amount of reward at exactly the right randomized intervals. People could not stop playing. Porn does the same thing without an algorithm. There's so much porn out there, and there's so much variety of porn out there that people can't stop playing. I'll ask my guys in the porn group, how many of you have ever said, just one more? And they all raise their hand. And then I say, how many of you have said just one more for 6 hours at a time? And they all raise their hand. They can't stop playing because the next video might be the video. That's highly addictive. So when there's a maybe in the equation, we can't stop playing. And they've done studies with rats. Rats and humans are very, very similar socially. We have a prefrontal cortex, they don't. So we're a little bit more logical than they are, but they're actually pretty smart. If you put a rat in a cage with, hamster wheels and little balls to kick around and other rats to chase around and fight with and mate with, and cedar shavings and all the good stuff that the rats like, plus the food and water bottle, the rat will go over. The first thing they do is check out the food and water. because they'd like to eat and drink. And they push the lever a couple times, and if they get a bite of food every time they push the lever, they eat 3 or 4 bites of food, they figure it out, and they go do something else. If they get a bite of food every other time they push the lever, they figure it out. They eat 3 or 4 bites of food, they go disappear. If it's every 5th time, guess what? They figure it out. They eat 3 or 4 bites of food and they go play. If you put a randomization algorithm in so they don't know and can't figure out when they're going to get a bite of food, they will press the lever and press the lever and press the lever and eat until they vomit. They can't stop pressing the lever. Maybe. Incredibly addictive. So when we combine maybe with variety, it's irresistible. And on top of that, all addictions have what we call escalation. No 7th grade boy ever said, hey, I want to be a heroin addict in 20 years. But if they're like me, they said, hey, I'm going to go to the boy-girl party and drink a beer and be the cool kid. And then by 9th grade, I'm drinking a 6-pack to be the cool kid. And then, in college, I'm drinking a case and vodka and then I'm smoking dope, and then I'm popping pills. And, suddenly 20 years after that first beer, I'm in an alley with a needle in my arm and I have no idea how they got there. We escalate. Well, porn addiction, because of the variety it offers, it also offers escalation in a way that no other single addictive behavior or substance does. Beer, beer is beer. I have to escalate to hard alcohol, which is something else. Hard alcohol is hard alcohol. I have to escalate to another drug, which is something else. Pornography just has so much variety that we can escalate all while still looking at the same porn site. Even within a genre, there's 100, thousands of different videos. I can click on MILF. I'm not going to give you the acronym if you don't know what it is, but it's a category and it's a popular one. And I can just click and click and click. And as this happens, I get exposed to new. Oh, that one's new and it's hot and it's whoa. Now what happens, because we also need variety, is the next time I see that video, it's still hot, but it's not as hot. And the next time I see that video, I'm like, next. It loses its appeal in a way that no other substance does. It's because it's one of the things that's so incredibly addictive is variety. So we need new ones. Even if it's the same type of video, same basic people, we need new versions of it. And then we escalate to a higher level of it. Suddenly, instead of just, a half-naked picture that gets us all excited when we first discover porn, then we need full frontal, and then we need multiple people, and then we need multiple people, and then they're doing, slings and whatever. It gets crazy, it escalates, and porn offers it. So porn offers variety and intermittent reward, and that is what sets pornography apart from almost any other substance or behavior in terms of why it's so unbelievably addictive. And that's without getting into the dopamine adrenaline rush that is a match for cocaine, by the way. Porn addicts are basically cocaine addicts in terms of the neurochemical high. It's almost indistinguishable. But it's variety and intermittent reward, along with it never says no, and it's always there for me. Okay. That's all I've got about porn. There's a whole lot more to talk about porn, about what it does to us when we get addicted, and it really messes with our brains, and how to get away from it, and what to do, and how you can have a healthy sex life. But join me in the Porn Addicts work group, or the sex addiction work group, where we talk about these things, or come into Sila for treatment to learn more, or hang around for Tami and I to do another one of these sessions maybe I'll do the next step on porn addiction.
Yeah, well, so you mentioned, so yes, so let me back up and explain what a work group is. A work group is a 6-week online course. They are psychoeducation. They are not treatment or therapy. They are really helpful at providing foundational components that you don't get in regular therapy. Many qualified therapists recommend that their clients participate in the work groups because it is information, and you'll have awarenesses that you can then take back to your therapist to work on. It helps. It is not enough, by itself. But so the Sex Addiction 101 starts, there's a few spots left, starts on Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific time. And then the Porn Addiction 101 starts like April 26th or something like that. Don't hold me to that. But it's on the Seeking Integrity under the work tab, or work group tab. So check that out. But Scott, I had a couple of questions for you. So
Okay.
like I know there's a perception that that porn, only men look at porn, but that, I mean, like I know, thank you. We have, a female sex, love, and porn addict, drop-in group on Tuesday nights. And so I don't know the statistics, and that's less relevant, but I do get people that are inquiring, and we don't have a work group for females. I'm sorry, but like for people to understand that this is not just, a male activity or problem, or however you want to call it. So do you have any thoughts on gender?
Yeah, there was research conducted. This is in about, I think they did the research in either 2010 or 11, and then published the book shortly after. Ogas, OGAS, and Sai, SAI, Gadam, GATTAM, neuroscientists. But they wanted to know, I don't know why neuroscientists wanted to know this, but they wanted to know what people were doing online. They wanted to know what people were searching for, what they were looking at, who they were, et cetera, et cetera. So they used Dogpile, which is a combination search engine. It pulls searches from Bing and Yahoo and all the other big ones, Google, whatever the big ones were. And they searched something like 4 million, or they analyzed something like 4 million searches from over 2 million people. And they found a lot of things out about pornography. I think it was 13% of all internet searches were for some form of porn or erotica, and like 25% of all downloads were some form of porn or erotica. And I mean, they learned a lot about what people were searching for, like the genres that interested them, which were very surprising. But they also found that not quite as many women as men were using porn, but a whole lot more than they had expected. It was something like a 60-40 split with male female. And all ages, all ethnicities, everything. Males are almost universally exposed to porn fairly early. Again, about the same time frame. Remember, this is like a decade ago. A lot has happened since then. There was a guy up in Canada named Simon Lajeunesse, and he wanted to study the impact of pornography on adolescent males. So the way you to conduct a study is you find a bunch of males who've used porn, and you ask them a bunch of questions, and you find some males that haven't used porn and ask them the same questions, and you look for differences. He could not find a single adolescent male for his control group. Every single adolescent male he talked to was a porn user. He had to scrap the study. He couldn't do it. I don't know that it's, at the time, I don't know that it was the same with young females, but I suspect it probably is by now. There's so much more porn available now. We simply cannot quantify the amount of pornography that's online. We have no idea. And what is porn? What is not porn? Is a sexy picture on Facebook porn or not? Is a topless with the bikini bottom, is that porn or not porn? Instagram, is that porn or not porn? OnlyFans, it's a social media site. Is it porn or not porn? And oh, by the way, you've heard David and I talk about not porn. I don't have to see porn to see porn. I have a mind that can generate porn out of anything. I have to be very careful with my thought life because I am a porn addict. I don't watch Game of Thrones. I don't watch a lot of shows because they're just too triggering for me. Even though they're technically not porn, they're porn. And that was, well, I don't even remember what you asked.
No, well, you hit the next one because the other one was going to be non-porn porn. And, like there's so many people that are justifying, well, it's not really porn. And I'm like, but it's like, well, it's only beer. I used to drink whiskey.
Right.
At some point you go, it's still problematic. And I'm, I don't think something that takes your brain and hijacks it off
Right.
here on any level, is helpful. And you talk about, and you kind of touched on the other thing too, is like the fantasy, and it's like, well, people go, well, don't I deserve to escape? Yeah, yes, on some level, but with us who are addicts, like, drugs was one of my issues. So, I gave up my right, when I have surgery, I get the lowest dose of, like I'm in pain, and you know what, I'm okay with that, like that's my personal choice. And but it's like, I preserve my recovery. So why would I want to dip into the non-porn porn? Why would I want to do those things? Anime has porn. I mean, like gaming has porn. Like, people go, well, I'm just gaming. No, gaming has, has porn. There's so much stuff, and you talked about adolescence too. And yes, it is young females, and, not even going down the what it's doing to them or whatever, but they are exposed at a young age. And we've talked often about, brains who are not formed, or the brains of people who, they're not adults, their brains haven't fully formed, and this is what's happening to their brains, at a younger age. So
one of the biggest sorry, Tammy, one of the biggest risk factors for addiction of any kind is early exposure to a substance or a behavior. The earlier we're exposed, the more likely we are to become addicted. And people, kids are getting exposed at 8, 9, 10, 11 years old to pornography. We have a tsunami of porn addicts on the way. Sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. But, and I agree. And and I think it's extra challenging. Like people go, it's just porn. I'm going, I think it's extra challenging because those images are stuck in your head, and it's really easy to tap into that, space in your brain. So you talked about having to guard your thoughts, and that is true. It's like with a substance, we stay away from those substances. I'm not hanging out at the bar anymore, so I am taking care of myself from that standpoint, but my head is always mostly connected to me. There are moments, but so it's very challenging to not, to slip into that space. And I think betrayed partners, feel that too, where there's that, all of a sudden that person is disconnected because they're, slipping into, that recall of, the thousands of images, that have been viewed. So great explanation, really helpful.
Thank you. And to Tammy's last point there, guys tell me all the time, my wife says I'm pulling away and I'm working my recovery. What am I doing? And I'm like, well, have you been messing around with not porn, or what does your thought life look like? And they're like, well, yeah, I've been having more thoughts than usual. I'm like, she knows, because you're not as present. And this is the point with both porn and not porn is, for me, I used it as a way to numb, both porn and not porn. And anything I'm looking at or thinking about that is creating the neurochemical high that gets me away from loneliness, boredom, fear, whatever, it's pulling, I'm using it like it's porn. It doesn't have to be actual porn, number one. And number two, I'm not present with my spouse. I'm not present with my kids. I'm not present with my work. And this is one of the issues with pornography is it's very hard to be present in the world when we're so preoccupied with sexual imagery and sexual fantasy. And it just destroys relationships. It destroys careers. And we lose track of who we are as people because we're just so enmeshed in a fantasy world that we're really not living life, which is, of course, the whole point of addiction is, I'm an addict to escape life, not to live it. The whole point of recovery is to live life, not escape it. And this is why we do have to pay attention to our thought life. And, guys will say, well, can I not watch you know, an R-rated movie. I'm like, okay, you can watch an R-rated movie, but watch it on the DVR and fast forward through the sex scenes, because no plot point ever happened in a sex scene, ever. You know,
That's a great point. Yeah.
just fast forward, and when it's over, you can go, okay, go. You're hand it to your wife and say, I'm gonna look away, and you fast forward, and when it's over. Same thing with books. I mean, I read spy novels and fantasy novels. There's always gratuitous sex scenes. I just skip them, and I have never missed anything important. So yeah, and there are so many other ways to cope with our feelings and to get the underlying needs met in healthy ways, you know, like talking to a loving spouse, or, you know, a friend in recovery, or walking the dog, or playing with the kids, or there's just so many other things to do that bring us into the world instead of out of the world.
So one of the things I'm hearing, and I'm very intentional, and I believe you are too. We're very intentional about our recovery. You know, the content I bring into my life, you know, I start my day with, you know, my meditations. I actually have one of my little meditation books right here. And, you know, like if I'm having a stressful day, I take 5 minutes and, you know, reconnect. It refocuses me. It helps me, you know, not go off the beam. I work too darn hard for my recovery and value it so much. You know, it has given me, you know, everything meaningful. And it really is those connections with, you know, people, my integrity. You know, I love that our company is called Seeking Integrity. We strive for that personally, and we want to help other people have that, you know, and if they do it, you know, if they do it is suggested, it's always suggestions, because we addicts, you know, dig our heels in and go, no, if you tell me what to do. But, you know, it's a suggestion. If you want, you know, to be on a different path, you can do this too, if you're willing. Not everybody, unfortunately, you know, not everybody's willing. So, okay, Scott, the first one, betrayed partner. Thank you for pointing out that normal people don't have sex life. And normal is like you know, it's like non-addicts. We'll use non-addicts because what is normal, but that non-addict people don't have sex life like they do in porn. I needed to hear the validation, because I feel like I don't know what a regular healthy sex life is in a healthy marriage. I also appreciate you discussing the common appeal of new and different. I like how compared to non-sexual things like fashion, I found both comments soothing in my self-esteem. Occasionally I struggle with feeling inadequate sexually and by just being me. So, but they appreciate that awesome explanation. So
there we go. Ask us some more questions, but yes, I think, I mean, I teach this to addicts all the time, but I'm so glad that there are betrayed partners listening today, and that betrayed partners are going to see the webinar on our YouTube channel and on our website, because betrayed partners need to know this information too, because, you know, sex addiction is not about sex. It's about escape. And B, my sexual choices to cheat, and porn is absolutely cheating, have nothing to do with my partner. They're about me and my need to escape emotionally. And I need that so much in the moment that I don't think about how much I might be hurting you. Now, pornography does a number on female self-esteem, whether women are using it or they're partnered with somebody who's using it. They can't help but compare themselves to these airbrushed, you know, surgically enhanced bodies that you find online. And some of them are surgically enhanced to the point where they're, you know, no one is actually naturally built that way. And yet, you know, your husband's looking at it, that must be what he's into. And I don't have those. I have these, which are very different than those. And you know, and it can do a number on your self-esteem. And they're all, you know, they're not all young. I mean, one of the things they found in the Ogus and Gadam study, by the way, the Ogus Gadam book about that is called A Billion Wicked Thoughts. Very interesting read, and not particularly triggering. So if you're just curious, it's one you can read, probably not get triggered. But they found a lot of people search for more realistic bodies. A lot of people search for more realistic age ranges. You know, not everybody is looking for 19-year-old co-eds. You know, there are as many people looking for sexy grandmas as 19-year-old co-eds, which is an interesting thought, because the common perception is all men want the 19-year-old co-ed with the ridiculous body that, their 40-year-old wife couldn't have because genetics don't work that way. Um, so it really can do a number on women's self-esteem. Now, here's the interesting bit. It can do a number on men's self-esteem too. Because the guys in pornography tend to be, hyper masculine, hyper muscular, large endowments, rock hard erections, full heads of hair, no paunch. So there's that perception. And of course, men will look at it and compare themselves and think, well, I don't measure up to that. And what happens sometimes is they will pull away from their loving partner to whom they are extremely attracted because they think their partner does not find them attractive. So men have these body image issues too. And the body image issues in both directions can screw up the intimacy and including the sexual intimacy in a relationship. And when I say intimacy, I'm talking about emotions. And then when I say sexual intimacy, I'm talking about the sexual expression of the emotional connection. So yeah, it can be a real mess. I mean, this is, I wasn't planning to get into the effects of porn, but these are some of the negative impacts of porn, is what it does to the people who see it, or the people who are partnered with people who see it. And again, go ahead, Tammy.
No, I was going to say, so I want to address, the women too, but the next question is, how do I stop comparing myself to the men in porn? And let's just talk about, how do you stop, comparing yourself to the men, but how do you stop as a partner too, also not thinking that you have to measure up to, some unrealistic, like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I just read some about this. I'm going to open up this piece. It hasn't published yet, but it's going
well
to.
And here's another thing I want to talk about, with this. So we're getting a lot out of this question. Thank you. But I'm also thinking, like, part of it is like, my self-esteem is bothered because I know that you've been looking at all this porn, but it's also, I hear regularly from, from partners that the addict has made comments along that you aren't, kind of reinforces that message as well. So sometimes it's just in our heads, but sometimes it's a reinforced message, from somebody who wants to keep doing what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. This is from an article that Dr. Rob is prepping for Psychology Today, and this is not the final version of the article, so I probably shouldn't read from it, but
it's
I think
a sneak peek. It's okay.
It's a sneak peek, and I think it's pretty close to final. And I just want to note a couple other things. In addition to body image issues, pornography contains or contributes to our culture of what we call toxic masculinity. These Me Too kind of guys, or the guys who created the need for Me Too, they think they're just being normal guys, and they're conforming to gender norms and expectations, and pornography feeds that mindset. So this is another issue that pornography can have for men. And it can also have the opposite for women, where they think they're supposed to be subservient and sexually flexible and willing to do everything, no matter how much it hurts, or no matter how just gross they find it. So there's that whole thing. And a lot of men, since we're on men at the moment, are not comfortable with this approach. I mean, some of us are just not that macho, and feeling like we're supposed to be that macho can diminish our self-perception, not just our physical self-perception, but our whole self-perception with life. We feel like we're not going to be successful at work, and it's just, it can really, really, really mess with us. Okay. To the question itself, how can I stop doing this to myself? Here are the tips that Dr. Rob has. Challenge body image norms presented by porn and social media or other media by observing other men in the real world. When you do this, you will notice that hardly any man lives up to the Baywatch image, and hardly any woman lives up to the Baywatch image. I mean, most people don't look like David Hasselhoff and Pam Anderson, or whoever the newer ones are. Another show I don't watch for obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, look around and reality check it. That's number one. I mean, hardly anybody looks like this. I mean, most men have some degree of male pattern baldness. I mean, receding hairlines, whatever. Even guys who are 70 with a full head of hair don't have the same full head of hair they had when they were 17. Next tip here, look for role models who embrace diversity in appearance and behavior. At the same time, pay attention to how the confidence of those role models, despite flaws, again, in air quotes, in their appearance, attracts people. And this is a proven thing. People who are friendly and confident are far more attractive than people who fit the lookism norm. And there's actual research on that. So pay attention to how, just being friendly and confident attracts people. That's another reality check. This is for, the people who go to the gym and they're constantly dieting and got to have the right clothes and the right car and the this and the that and the other. Particularly with the gym, focus on overall health and wellness instead of physical appearance. And again, there's research on this. People who go to the gym because they want to look good, it's either a chore or they don't keep going. People who go to the gym because they want to be healthier and feel better, keep going to the gym. They enjoy it. They feel better not only physically, but mentally. So focus on health and wellness instead of looks. And then the last tip he has is, if your body image issues are severe, seek professional counseling. A good therapist can help men and women explore and counteract the negative self-talk, while at the same time building self-compassion and a more realistic sense of self. And then probably one I would add for women is I'm trying to get back to the image, sorry. There we are. Is don't let other people tell you how you look. Don't let other people criticize your looks. My sister, who I love dearly and who's gorgeous, I remember some of the things my mother would say to my sister, who has always been gorgeous. She was runner-up for Miss Indiana pageant back in the day, and she still looks great. And my mother would say hideous things to her about her appearance. And she carried that with her for a long, long time. And only recently is just realizing, no, no, that's just no. Enough with that. I think this is particularly true with women. Don't let anyone tell you you're not attractive. Just don't. Everyone is attractive. Everyone has beauty. And not everyone finds everyone, we all find different things attractive. I mean, just because,
Thank goodness.
And thank goodness, yeah, because we all look different. One of my friends says there's a lid for every pot, and he's right. So yeah, so that was a long-winded answer.
No, I really appreciate that, and having had massive images like your sister, I'm so grateful your sister has found her path through it too. But what I have learned is I don't focus on any given body part, because I'm confident I can find a flaw with every one of them. I mean, I can. I'm of a certain age. There's stuff, but what I go to the gym, and I go to the gym because I want to be healthy and I want to do the activities that I want to do as long as I possibly can. And so I look at it as it's just maintenance for me. It's like you take care of your car and your car runs well. So that's, my body serves me well from the standpoint of like all of the activities that I want to do. And so that's where I have shifted, because it was massive. I could look at any part and tell, but it was very compartmentalized. It was all, well, that part is wrong and that part is bad, and like all of that. And it's like, as a whole, I am a human being, and I have value and worth, and and my body has served me well for a number of years. So, and I want more. So, and they commented that that helped a lot. So, I'm but I do
jump into this.
Go ahead.
Type in some more questions. We need some more questions. Oh, objectification.
Mhm.
We can, porn addicts, we objectify everyone and everything. Everything gets run through this sexual fit. Like these glasses would automatically make all of you naked. I mean, this
They
is what
don't. So,
they
yeah.
don't. No, they just help me see myself on screen here.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
porn addicts in particular, we run everyone through a sexual filter, everyone and everything. We basically picture them naked and engaged in a sex act that they would probably never do of their own accord. Or maybe they would, we don't know. But, we objectify, and, we have to, before we do that, I want to say we also objectify ourselves. I was never more critical of my own body than when I was active in porn addiction. It was just, I mean, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. Now, a lot of it was the shame I had about how I was behaving at that time, which was horrendously in a whole bunch of areas of life. But a lot of it was just, I would look at myself in the mirror and, and I just picked apart this body part and that body part. And it was how I saw other people as body parts rather than a whole person. I did it to myself too. So porn addicts, we objectify ourselves in that way, but not in a way where we're like, "Oh, I'm so hot," or usually. And we have to stop doing that to not only other people but to ourselves. And I'll give one quick tool before we jump into this next question. Um, when I teach, I use the generic term yoga pants, which is probably a horrible term to use, but it's for visual triggers out in the world. And the world is full of yoga pants, basically. Doesn't matter if you're into men or women or whatever, there's always something to look at. So when you see yoga pants, we have what we call the 3-second rule. Because my natural inclination is to objectify whoever it is, in front of me in line at the grocery store. So there's 2 versions of the 3-second rule. I'll give you Dr. Rob's version first, which is second number 1, I'm objectifying. Second number 2, turn away. And second number 3, think about that person as a whole human being. Humanize them. Oh, that's a mother with small children because she's got, infant formula in the cart and she's married and she doesn't need me perving on her, which is what I was just doing a second ago. And more than that, she's somebody's wife or sister or daughter or mother. And I wouldn't want somebody having these objectified thoughts about my wife or my daughter, heaven forbid, or my mom or my sister. I just don't want them having those thoughts that I was. So that's version number 1. Version number 2 is for people who are really, really far gone into objectification, which I was. I couldn't do that version of the 3-second rule. I just was not at a point in my recovery where I could see someone else as an actual human being. I had broken everyone down to body parts for so long and was so disconnected from people. So my version of the 3-second rule early on was second number 1, oh, I'm objectifying. Second number 2, turn away. Second number 3, think about something else. Anything else, the score of last night's game, or the Pacers or the Colts, are they going to trade for Lamar Jackson? Or are they going to draft a quarterback? What am I making for dinner? What do I need to do at work? Anything else. And that worked for me. I could distract myself. At about the year mark, the humanizing thing worked. So I did come around. I'm happy to report that I now see faces and eyeballs and, expressions on the
A
face.
whole human. Yeah.
Yeah, a whole person, starting with
and
the
face. I've heard people manipulate that too. I get to look for 3 seconds and we're like, yeah, that is not the 3-second rule. That is,
second
you
number
are
1, I'm
completely
objectifying.
gone. Yeah.
Second number 1, I'm objectifying. Second number 2, look away, turn away. Second number 3, do something about it. Yeah, you don't get 3 seconds.
I want to go back real quick because we're talking about objectification and stuff too, and then we'll get to the next question. But we were talking about younger people, and unfortunately, often their first real exposure to anything sexual is through porn. And so the idea that all all people are going to act like, like girls are going to act like, sex goddesses that you see in porn, and they're going to, automatically orgasm as soon as you look at them. I mean, it's like there's this misperception, and then and it gets skewed both ways, that both people are thinking that this is, so the disconnection of human intimacy, is, I think, challenging for younger people as well. So
yeah, porn is one of the issues that everybody's running into. Is porn is sex education these days. The schools, I mean, I think barely half the states have mandatory sex education, and the ones that have it, it's very ridiculous. It's like, boys have a penis, girls have a vagina. Okay, go play. I mean, it's like, oh, thanks, that was useful.
Yeah.
So kids learn from porn, and they do think that that's what real world sex looks like. That's, girls like it when, there's 7 guys lined up to, it's like, no, girls don't like that.
But they
trust
think
me, they don't.
No, I know, but it also goes to the shaming of, now they think they should. What's wrong with me
Right.
that I don't? Because that's what I
Right.
saw. So I
Yeah.
just, it's the broader, and I don't have any solution for all of this, other than make sure you're having conversations with your children.
Yes.
And don't think your children are the only ones that, are the angels that
Right.
didn't touch any porn, have never seen an
Right.
image, even though they're 17, not realistic. So,
Yeah.
okay. Next question. Hi, Scott. First of all, thank you for the impact you have made on my life and addiction. Your sex addiction work group was awesome. So remember, that one starts again on Friday, and the porn work group. I am sober from porn for over a year now, and my wife and I are currently focused on emotional intimacy, and I'm finding all of the good things that come from that. This is exactly what recovery is about. Thank you. My question is, will the emotional intimacy continue to get better the longer I am away from porn?
Well, I mean, every situation is different, but I'm going to say, in a general way, yes. Tammy, go ahead, because I think you want to address.
Well,
this.
I do. Yeah, honestly, this is one of those where I'm going, yes, as long as you continue to do the work. You aren't recovered. You're like, this is not, now you're magically done. And, oh, we got to this point. Scott and I both are in longer term recovery, and I share often, because at a big number, I was really frustrated that why wasn't I all done with this, and it was all wrapped up with a bow, and I should be like, oh, that's not reality. So what I have learned to appreciate is that as long as I continue to do the work, I will continue to make progress. You can both continue to grow the relationship. I love that you're a year, and that's great. But a year is also, most of these issues start under age 10. I don't know how old you are, but let's say you're 30. That means for 2/3 of your life, you have been disconnected and everything else. So figuring out, like, just for today, how can I make this better? Oh, my wife and I are doing better. Great. What would be the next step to improve it? And it's not linear where you go, and I'm just going to keep making progress. It really is, there's like, oh, that's called life, but you're learning the tools to be able to do life on life's terms, and not have to flip back to, sex and porn addiction that, creates the distance between you and your wife. You can continue to create those emotional connections, and that's great that you have it with your wife, but you are, I bet, also connected in real and meaningful ways with other people too, in a very different way than you could show up for anybody when you're in active addiction.
Yeah, well stated. There's always before discovery of the cheating and after discovery of the cheating. The intimacy will never be as unconditional. The trust will never be as unconditional, but the relationship that you end up with in recovery can be so much better than the relationship before discovery. It's doing things. So, I mean, there's this form of Japanese pottery where they make like a teacup or a tea kettle, and then they smash it. and then they glue it back together and reglaze it because they think it's more beautiful for having been broken. And I think relationships are, I can't remember the name, somebody will probably type into the Q&A the name of this art form, but I look at relational recovery like this because we break it and then we piece it back together. There's a lot of effort that goes into that. And I, as the addict, the person who smashed it, I have to learn how to become vulnerable in ways that I never was before. And when I say never, I mean never for me. I mean, I was never vulnerable. I learned very early on to shut up. Kintsugi, thank you. Wonderful. So, I learned very early in my life to just shut up when I had a need or a feeling. Shut up. So I never became vulnerable. So anytime I've been in a relationship with someone, they literally say, you let me in and then you slam the door. You let me in the front yard, but you won't let me in the front door. You won't let me inside. And that's the truth. Now, in recovery, I let people in. I invite them in. If they're safe, if I feel safe with them, I invite them in and they can see, the mess that I am still. Tami will vouch for this. I am still a mess. I'm okay with that. I let people love me anyway. And this is what can happen in relational recovery after infidelity. It's like this teapot that's been glued back together. It can be more beautiful because I am, for the first time, being open and honest and vulnerable. And partners, usually betrayed partners, have been craving that. So they're pretty receptive to it, although sometimes not so much. Sometimes the betrayed partners have to learn to be vulnerable as well. But what happens is we can become vulnerable together. And not only can our emotional intimacy be better than ever, our sexual intimacy can become better than ever. Because for me as an addict, sex was always about adrenaline and dopamine, particularly with the addiction. It was never about emotional connection. And there are other neurochemicals that bring us pleasure, like oxytocin and serotonin and norepinephrine and a few others that help us feel loved and safe and seen and loved anyway, and heard. And, don't we all want to feel seen and safe and, loved anyway, despite our faults? That's our real need. It never gets met with sex addiction. It never gets met with porn addiction because those are fantasies. A partner who loves me anyway, which is, this kintsugi teapot, there's just it's so much more beautiful, I think. And the sex can be so much better. So anyway.
It says our scars are what make us beautiful. How's that? How is that? There's also a little, because of course I've got the thing up there going, oh, that is so cool. But it's, we're stronger where we were broken, but it's, so yes, we can be hot messes, but we're never as hot a mess as we were in active addiction. But we also have the tools to, if something's going on, like I'm going to a meeting, I'm going to do something that's going to shift that, because I don't tolerate well anymore the chaos and being, restless, irritable, and discontent. Like I need to do the things that get me back in alignment, pretty quick. I used to live in chaos. That was the state of my being, so to be able to go, yep, that's not comfortable anymore, that's huge progress. But this person also mentioned, the journey is never over, and right. That's, but it's a journey, and it's, like I look at recovery is not a destination, it's a journey. And I really believe that is true, that we continue to learn. But I love this. I may have to get one of these bowls because there's a pretty bowl. And I was like, yes, but I believe that, we are stronger, and like, I believe that we are able to show up, and hopefully you find this helpful. But because we did what we needed to do. I was sharing with the betrayed partner group earlier today, and I have more compassion because I went through a massive betrayal, 10 months of nightmares, you know, and I had compassion for betrayed partners before. I have empathy. I get it now on a very different level. So, you know, was it fun to go through that? No. Do I still get, you know, touches of that? Yes. But I am willing to have gone through that because I feel different and can show up differently. You know, I get it. I get the pain. And so again, not fun, you know, but I don't trade anything. One of the things, and I shared on the meeting earlier today too, was, you know, part of the promises is we will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. You know, this couple, you guys are, you know, like you were going along, she didn't know, you were doing your thing, but now, you know, you've weathered a year, and on this path, you can continue to grow your relationship, eyes wide open, but to have a better relationship. And I don't know if you've got children, but what you model for children, what you model to others, you know, other couples, is very different than what you had 18 months ago. So
Yeah. I think that's it. Are we out of
I
questions?
think that's it. Thank you
Okay.
all for being here tonight. We appreciate you showing up. We appreciate questions as
Tammy,
always.
thank
So
you for
yeah,
being here with me.
happy to do so. I know Dr. David has some more traveling, so I've got dates. So
Yeah.
we'll be doing this again. So, but yeah, the schedule's a little off. Like the Friday webinar is not going to happen. So I think that's the only thing that might be changed, but check the schedule always on our website to keep current. So
All right.
bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week.